If I had to describe my dad in one word, it would be type A. He's, on it. He's planned it. We're doing it. And don't forget to take pictures of it.
Intense. He knows what he wants. Even when he's told he can't do that, he doesn't know that term. He doesn't know can't.
I guess the best. I always think of him as the best. He's dependable. He was always there when I need. He is always there when I need him.
Indomitable. He can't be stopped. If he puts his mind to doing something, it's going to get done. If he breaks his leg skiing and he still wants to go down the mountain, he's going to make it.
If I had to describe my dad in one word, I would have to say amazing. I wish I would, when I'm 80 years old, I could look back on what I've done in my life and what I've created in my life and see the things that my dad's done.
Best piece of advice he's ever given, must have heard it 100 times. I've heard it once, probably 1,000 times. I've heard it once. Is be your own boss.
Because I didn't take it, it's probably the thing that reminds me over and over again. But he used to always say, just do what you love, but be your own boss. He was his own boss, except when my mother was his boss.
Life is short, and you got to do what you can or want to do when you can. And he's always been a big believer in, do it now. You might not be able to do it at some other time, or you might not be here. And I think, having lost both my mom and my stepmom, he always thought he would be the one to go first. So I think that really pushed him on his impetus, to travel as much as he had. He certainly didn't travel as much as he did when he was younger.
Don't sweat the small stuff. I used to always be concerned about money. If I would go to a restaurant, I wouldn't want to order an iced tea because it would be $1.50 and I can get water for free. And he would tell me, you need to not worry about the little stuff. It's a drop in the bucket. He would say that.
Every day is new and exciting, and that you should wake up and have a plan. And if you can be with family, he like I said, he really organizes his life to try to be with, 5 kids and all their grandkids, and to see everybody and juggle his own life. And so I think family is really important to him.
The most important thing I learned from my dad is family is the most important thing in the world. So anytime you have the opportunity to spend time with your family, take it, experience life with your family. Those things are the things that you look back on them the most and cherish the most in your life.
Probably the most important thing is that he's a good person, and he instilled that in me and all the kids.
Later on, it wouldn't matter who I was with. If I had a friend in the car with me, he'd turn around and say, it wouldn't hurt for you to hear this too. And so he'd say to me, your mother was a virgin when I married her. That's why I married her. You don't buy the cow if you get the milk for free. And so I always, think about it and laugh. And I'd go back with my friends, all embarrassed. But, that's just the way he was.
His love of sports is undeniable. I think baseball and hockey are his 2 favorite sports. At least that's what we talk about the most.
I really don't know what sports my father played when he was growing up. He loves sports. He grew up in Detroit, and he's told me numerous times that he would study, go to Olympia, and study while the Red Wings were warming up for their games, and that's where he just loved hockey.
I basically grew up with my dad coaching baseball, and as a result, actually he coached baseball, but he was an avid sports fan of anything, basketball, football, hockey.
He told me a story once about football. He went to see a preseason football game once in Detroit, and they kicked off the ball to start the game. The guy ran down to the 10-yard line, thought he was in the end zone, and spiked the ball. And my dad got up and said, if they don't know where the end zones are by now, I'm not going to stay for this. So he left the game.
Because he was a coach, and because my brothers, Randy, Robert, and Bradley, all played baseball, the family spent a lot of time at baseball games. And so I learned my love of baseball from both he and my mom.
I pretty much had it with baseball. I'm the only kid that doesn't embrace baseball in our family, and so you'll be together with him and you'll doing something and he'll go, oh, we got to go watch the whatever game. And he does have a team, but it's not like he has to watch that team. It's like any team is on. And I'm like, I just don't want to do that.
One of the best memories I have of my dad is just sitting in his room watching the USA Network. They would play one hockey game a week, hockey night in Canada, and that's where I learned the game of hockey and how beautiful it is. And sitting in his room with him and my twin brother watching hockey is one of the great memories that I have of my dad.
We were together in '86 when the Astros were ahead in Game 6 in the National League Championship Series, and he said that we had the game in the bag. As soon as he said that, the game was history. It was they took out Nepper and put in, I think it was Dave Smith, and the Astros lost that game and lost the series. And I just remember thinking, I'm never bringing him to an important game. But that's not true. He's been with me, for very much exciting things and disappointments. He was with me for the Astros in the World Series, and he's been to All-Star games. We've also been to football games. We were at the inaugural Texans game here, where the Texans actually beat the Dallas Cowboys. I like to rub that in a little bit.
Sometimes I actually think that we talk too much about sports and not about things that are important. But it is important to both of us. It's definitely something that we're bonded with.
Growing up, my dad always had his camera with him, and he's 79 and 11/12 right now, and he is still always has his camera with him.
He discovered photography early and got hooked, like he does on many things that he does. He goes no holds barred, but he always had a camera, it seemed to me, when we were growing up.
It's another one of the traits that I got from him, because I'm the same way. I have my camera with me all the time, and I love taking pictures. I just don't like being in them.
He's had the big bellows type Polaroids. He's had the big medical ones with the ring lights. He's had professional SLRs. He's had digital cameras, point and shoots.
I can tell you right off the bat that I absolutely hated it as a child.
It is very annoying to have him have his camera all the time, because there's never a moment you're not being asked to pose for a picture, or he's snapping a picture.
But we always had to stop and take pictures and get the family together, and not just one picture. We had to take 7 because somebody might have blinked in one of them.
The taking of the pictures was one thing, so we would we'd all be together, and we'd we'd take this one picture, and then he'll go, oh, just one more. It
got to be a joke that we'd go to an amusement park, and he'd say to us, stop at the top of the roller coaster and wave, because I'm going to be over here taking a picture. And it's like, okay, Dad, like, we're going to get them to stop at the top of the roller coaster. But it was always like that.
It's so funny. Like, he'll stand right next to the photographer at the bar mitzvah, next to him on the right. So basically he's going to have the same photo that the photographer has, but it's going to be off kilter by an inch.
What really frustrates me is he doesn't really have any kind of filing system. And this began so long before digital that it isn't easy to file. Yeah, it used to shoot Super 8 videos also. I haven't seen a Super 8 camera in forever, but he's got to have miles of film somewhere. I don't know where it is.
I didn't develop a love of photography, but I did develop a dislike for slideshows.
Every time he picked up slides, he'd put them in the carousels, and we'd set up the projector in the living room, and the entire family would have to come watch these slides.
And I remember sitting on the floor in our living room. The taking of the pictures was painful, and then the watching, because he took so many, the recap of the trip was painful too, but somewhere in there we had a good time.
He'd be showing us, pictures of us at Belle Isle or Walden or wherever we were, and then all of a sudden a radical neck dissection would pop up. And I could hear my mother still saying, Alan, things like that, because all the kids are sitting around and looking at all these horrific surgical procedures.
10 days ago, my daughter got inducted into the National Honor Society, and I wanted to take a picture of her, and she wouldn't let me do it. I did not get that picture that day. But as a parent and as you get older, you really cherish having those photographs. it's a snapshot in time.
My dad took pictures of everything and everyone, and just looking back on those pictures is just, it brings back so many memories of fun times with your family and your friends that those are the things that my dad has taught me are the most important.
A lot of his life, or at least what he saw, is captured, and I hope to see it someday.
My favorite shared memory with my dad is in Corpus Christi watching hockey on USA Network. They'd broadcast one hockey game a week. Obviously, Corpus Christi wasn't a big hotbed of hockey at the time, but we would sit, my brother, Brad, myself, my dad, would sit and watch hockey, and I learned the game from my dad. So that's my favorite memory of my dad.
He's done lots of funny things, and I can think of lots of quirky things, but I think the funniest thing is my mother commenting. Back in I think it was the early '70s, streaking was popular, and you'd be watching baseball games, and some nut would come out of the stands and go streaking. Well, I remember sitting on the sofa in our house on Cape Ann, and this noise comes down, and it was my dad. He streaked across the back of the sofa as a joke for my mom. But it was just so funny.
When I started dating, he started to get, kind of protective, and he would give me the talk, basically, that, hey, don't go there with that guy. Basically, we had that talk so many times that it was then called the V talk. And so he would just go like this to me anytime I went out of the house, and I'll be like, okay, got it, Dad, So it wasn't quite embarrassing, but if the guy knew, it would be very embarrassing. So it had potential to be awful, but it was pretty funny.
We went to the theater one time. We used to love to go to the theater. We were in the front, in the middle, and I don't know if they had assigned seating. They must have had assigned seating, but somebody had the same seat as he did. And there was, of course, an argument about it in the middle of the theater, these two people. This whole row was filled up, and there's two people are standing in the front, my father and this other person, and it was I think it was another man. I don't really remember who the other person was right now, but after an argument about this and that, the other thing, it became like that game, Musical Chairs, where they just started pushing each other, and Alan sat down. He's a big guy, and there was no getting him out of that chair. But it was very funny to watch these two people struggle over a chair for a theater. That made me laugh.
He got into marathon running because I was going to do a marathon. And so probably the marathons we did together. I remember we'd do the marathon, we'd meet up afterwards, and we'd go eat at the Carnegie Deli. Because, hey, we worked so hard. We must have lost a lot of weight. We could eat whatever we want. So probably that.
He's really been there for me. I've battled depression, and he's never wavered from the cost involved in some of my treatment to wanting to be there, even when I told him not to be. So I'll say I'm going to stick with that one.
When I was little, he was big and gruff, and he's a little scary, and my friends all thought he was scary. He was Dad to me. I wasn't really scared of him, but he was a big guy. He has a deep voice, and my way of communicating with my dad was he wasn't home all the time. He worked a lot, and he was home in the evening, but we were all there. So if I wanted to tell him something, I would tell my mom, and she would tell him, and then she would answer, and so we would kind of communicate through her. So, I'm sure my brothers mentioned, but my mom passed away, and then I was coming home for the summer. Like, she passed away in November, and then I went back to school in January, and did the rest of that semester, and then came home for the summer and lived in the house we grew up in with my dad. Everybody else was gone because I'm the youngest. So that was a little strange, but it was really, if my mom had been there, I would have been with my mom. But because we had kind of a forced time together, I really feel like I got to know him well. And now we don't live in the same city, but I feel like I have a relationship with him that I wouldn't have had if my mom had lived.
My favorite thing about my dad is his outlook on life. He just sees something and he goes for it.
My favorite thing about my dad, there's so many things. He's your dad, so you love him. You think that all the things he does is unique.
My favorite thing about my dad is that he just has no barriers. I mean, if there's something he wants to do, he does it. He charges full ahead. He's kind of like a bull in a china shop. But he sees it, he wants it, and he goes for it.
So often he's up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and making coffee, and I'm like, just don't talk to me until around 10:30. And then he's still just going. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He's just so excited for the day and what he's going to do that day and the plans he has. And he's just always been that way.
If I had to say something about him that was my favorite thing, is that he has treated all of his children equally. He loves them all, and he does his best to share that love. So,
Favorite thing about my father is he truly cares about everybody, and specifically his family. That's really the most important thing to him. He will go out of his way to help us. If we all know that we just have to ask, and he would be there in a heartbeat. That's really what I think. He just cares so much about everybody.
My dad is a big repeater. He'll tell you and he'll tell you again. And, I can't think of any one story, but I'll frequently say to him, you've told me that before, you've told me that before. But he does tell, and it's probably because he has 5 kids. He doesn't remember who the heck he's told what to. And he tries to make sure that we're all up to date on everything that's going on.
The story my dad tells about me over and over that I wish he would just put it to bed is the time that we were in Cincinnati for a Cincinnati Reds and Dodgers baseball game. We got to the stadium and we were in different rows, and my brother got to sit closer to the action than I was, and I was pretty upset. Sure enough, sometime during the game, Ken Landreau hit a foul ball, and I got the ball, and all of a sudden the worst seat in the stadium became the best seat in the stadium. And my dad enjoys that story. He likes to tell it over and over again, and it's time to put that one to sleep.
the only story that I can even think of comes to mind is one that I don't personally remember, but I must have been 4 or something like that. And it was in Michigan. They had some kind of a party at the house, and in those days everybody smoked, including my father and my mother. And I guess at the end of the cocktail party or whatever they were having, they gathered up all the cigarette ash from all the ashtrays and put it in one little bowl. Apparently, young Randy found the bowl of ashes and made a pretty good meal out of it. I had ash all over my face. I'm told this, obviously, but my mother panicked and she called the doctor. In those days, things were different. So she called the doctor, the pediatrician, and the doctor said, "Do you have a bucket?" My mother said, "A bucket? What are we going to do with that?" She says, "Well, he's going to start throwing up pretty soon, and I'll be right over." And I'll be damned. Apparently, the pediatrician came over to the house. Sure enough, I was throwing up. But anyway, I made it through that. I've heard him tell that story maybe twice, but he doesn't really tell a lot of stories about me, at least not in front of me. So that's the only one I can think of.
Well, I'm not sure there's a specific story, but there's a couple of things that kind of Melissa and I look at each other every time it happens that we wish he wouldn't do. One is when he sees someone from across the room or across the plaza or across the world, he wants to announce that he's there. And I can't reproduce it like he can, but there's a specific saying, and it goes something like this: "Yo!" I mean, everyone can hear it. "Yo!" And he's basically saying, "Here I am, let's get together," or whatever. But when he does it, it kind of embarrasses a lot of the people around him. So that's something I wish he wouldn't do.
My earliest memory of my dad is probably him as Santa at the Naval Air Station in Corpus. He was Jewish, we're Jewish, And so, because he thought it would be nice for the other people to be with their families, he would be Santa. And so they would bring their kids and families, and he would give out gifts. And so I remember my dad being dressed up as Santa. The Cottinghams were good friends of our family, and they celebrated Christmas. And so we would go over there and help them decorate their tree. And so I have family pictures of us lighting Hanukkah candles where there's a Christmas tree in the background, or you can see garland on the mantle of the fireplace. And that was at the Cottinghams' house that we were taking those pictures. And I remember doing that pretty much, a number of years in a row.
But I do remember that when I was little, I don't know how little that I was, but he used to take me on rounds to the hospital with him every Sunday. So he would take me, and we would get in. He has a 450 SL Mercedes that he loved, and the top would be down, and we would drive from our house to the hospital, and then we'd go in there. And my dad's fast, he's got stuff he's got to do, so he's on. You're always like dragging behind, but so we would go to patient's room, and at the time a lot of the people had tracheotomies, which is really gross if you have never seen one. Basically, it's a hole in your neck, but when they're fresh, they pack them, and so I remember he used to let me help him unpack them, and so here I'd be this like little kid, and I was like doing a magic show, with this ribbon coming out, and the poor patient, was going, because it's in their airway. So anyway, so not the best memory, not the earliest, but just one I have that we were alone for.
The best trip I've taken with my dad has to be Baltimore. We went there for Cal Ripken breaking Lou Gehrig's record of consecutive games played, and just it was very memorable having my dad and my brother and sister and my wife at the time there. It was an incredible experience.
In 1995, my brothers Rob and Brad and I and Dad went to Baltimore, and we saw Cal Ripken break the record. And so it just brings back a lot of good memories every time I see any reference to that or think about it. It was probably the first one of my real baseball trips.
Well, there have been a lot of trips, and I'm looking forward to more. We took my brothers for their bar mitzvah to Israel with the whole family, and that was memorable. I think that's one of the best trips. We went with our rabbi from the synagogue, and it was also a trip where I was not married yet, but I was already with my wife, and they welcomed her as part of the family, and we've been traveling together ever since.
As a kid, I would say the trip to Israel for Rob and my bar mitzvah when we were 13. We went as a family. We went with the congregation, and it was just a fabulous trip. And I was 13. I was a kid and really couldn't appreciate it the way I do now.
Several years ago, I went with my dad to Cuba, and it was just myself, my dad, and it was actually an organized group by the Jewish community in Dallas. And I wanted to go, and I knew the guy who was putting the trip together, so he invited me to come, and I invited my dad, and he said yes. So we went off for, I think, 4 or 5 days to Cuba, and neither of us had been there before, so that was unusual because he's been to every patch of land in the world. And we had just a really nice time. We were, of course we were with those people, but we were together, and it was fun. I think the best part, was in Cuba, the cars are stuck in like 1940, 1950, that style of car. And my dad had, I can't remember what kind of car it was, but he had, I want to say some sort of Bel Air or something like that. And we spent the whole time looking for his car. And we finally found one that was pretty much identical to what he had. And we went up to the guy, and he was so nice. He let him get in there. And he was like a child with a toy. It was like fun to see him looking back and smiling.
2 months ago, my father and I went to Aspen, and we went skiing. This is the first time in my life where I was really able to, be flexible with my schedule. And I'm like, I would love to go skiing. And so by the time that breakfast was done, he had already booked me airfare and everything to go on this trip. I mean, the guy's 79 years old, about to be 80, obviously. And he's out there skiing, and he's apologizing to me for being slow. And I'm like, Dad, look around this mountain. How many other 79-year-olds are out here? I tell you what, that trip, more than anything, it was just being able to be with my father alone. It was 3 days. It was just us. We ate, we skied, we watched TV, we watched sports. We talked. I'm going to be 50, he's going to be 80. I've never gone on a trip with him alone. You know, we've got a great family. There's 5 kids. I've got a twin brother. So whenever we would go out, you know, we went on family vacations. They were great. But it was the entire family. Rob and I would go places with him with scouts. You know, it was great. But it was Rob and I, you know, it's the twins. You know, it's never been just me and my father. And that was just a great trip.
If we were making a movie out of Zeta's life, I think Donald Sutherland would be a good actor to play him.
If a famous actor were going to play Zeta in a movie, it would definitely be Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, George Kennedy. George Kennedy.
The most interesting man in the world from the Dos Equis commercials.
I think Pierce Brosnan would play Zeta in a movie of his life because he goes on a lot of adventures, just like James Bond.
If my grandpa was going to be portrayed in a movie, I would think Michael Caine would play him.
If we were making a movie of my dad, I had to choose a star to play him, I would probably choose a young William Shatner.
If we're going to pick a live action star to play my dad and we could go back in time, then it would definitely be William Shatner. I mean, hands down, we always said that William Shatner was my dad.
I would have William Shatner play him for sure. I think he'd be good for like all stages of his life, but especially when William Shatner was doing the commercials for like the hotels. Even in person, I was like, oh my God, you and my dad would just be like thick as thieves. Are you sure you're not brothers?
If Zeta were to be an actor in a movie, it would definitely be Tommy Lee Jones because he's serious and funny.
Probably to play my young dad, I don't know, Russell Crowe.
I would probably pick Russell Crowe. I think he's got the range to cover everything that my father... Everything in my father's life, from his medical background to his family, his love of travel, his emotions, his, you know, intellect.
What actor would play my grandfather? Well, I guess since it's his 80th birthday, I'd kind of have to pick an older actor. I guess some of those movies are a bit before my time. Morgan Freeman can play anybody, so I'd say I'd cast Morgan Freeman to play my grandfather.
Alec Baldwin. Because he does the credit card commercials now, and since he likes to travel a lot and he's funny, we'd be Alec Baldwin for sure.
For years, we equated my father with Fred Flintstone from the Flintstones, that cartoon, just because he was a big guy, had big feet, big hands, kind of guy you'd think could stick his feet through the floor of a car and stop it.
You should get John Goodman. Maybe have John Goodman lose a few pounds, but he played Fred Flintstone. If Goodman played Flintstone, he might as well be able to play Alan, because my wife always refers to him as Fred.
I truly think my dad is Fred Flintstone, so it doesn't matter. We'd do a cartoon instead. So when my mom was around, my mom always wore her hair up in this very Victorian bun, and so she was Wilma. So I guess that made me Pebbles.
And if we were going to do it animated, it would be Pigpen. Because, you know, my dad carries with him this cloud of newspapers. Wherever he goes, there's papers, magazines, whatever, and he just kind of leaves them as he finishes reading. And so if you want to clean up after him, you just follow the trail of newspaper, and you'll eventually find him.
If my dad was an animal, what kind of animal would he be? I just see my dad as a big, cuddly bear. He's intimidating, but you get to know him and you just want to hug him. So... my dad, if I had to choose an animal, my dad would be a big cuddly bear.
I think a zebra would best represent my grandfather because zebra sounds like Zeta. So a zebra would represent my grandfather. And he's always on the move. He's always running around, driving us crazy.
He is a bull. Nothing's going to stop him. He's a total stud. And he's going to keep charging forward, and he's really strong.
Not only bull, but bull in a china shop. The guy's a big guy, and he bounces around. He will step in front of people trying to get the right picture. He'll grab the last piece of food when somebody hasn't had any. He'll do things like that, and it's just because he is an intact male of the species.
If Zeta
Were an animal, he would be a bull in a china shop.
I agree, a bull in a china shop.
Zeta were an animal, he would definitely be a bull in a china shop, right? Yeah.
A great white shark because they're very competitive.
I think Zeta would be an elephant. Not because of the size, but because elephants are smart and regal and curious, and I think that's pretty well sums him up.
I'd say a monkey just because they're curious. They're always full of life.
I think Zeta would be an eagle so he could fly all over the world and see all the cool things.
The type of animal that I see my father is the Lion King. He's the leader of the pride. He has his own pride. He's got 5 kids. He's got a gaggle of grandkids and now great-grandkids.
A panda bear, because big and cuddly.
I think he would have to be the Energizer Bunny. He just has so much energy to do everything. His schedule is so scheduled. He never stops. Keeps going and going and going.
If my dad were an animal, I think I would have to say he would be a whirling dervish. He kind of spins around, he stops for a second, he picks up stuff around him, and then he moves on. There's a mess behind, and, he just keeps moving.
If Zeta was an animal, I think he'd be a bird because he travels a lot and birds fly a lot of places.
The best animal for Zeta would be a parrot because he repeats things that people say. And I think Zeta really likes to talk and he watches over people, so like a bird.
Let's say happy birthday. Can you say happy birthday, Zeta, and blow a kiss? Can you blow a kiss? Say bye-bye.
Very good.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday,
Zeta.
Zeta. We love you.
We love you.
And you don't seem like you're 80. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Zeta. I really like spending time with you, and I wish I could spend more time with you.
Happy 80th birthday, Zeta.
I hope you have the best birthday yet. Happy birthday.
80th birthday, Zeta. I hope that you have many, many more to come. And it has been a pleasure being one of your favorite daughter-in-laws for the last 24 years.
Happy birthday, Zeta. I love you so much, and I'm so glad I got to grow up with such great grandparents.
Happy birthday, Zeta, and my wishes for your 80th birthday is health, happiness, and another 80 years.
Happy 80th, Zeta. I hope you continue having fun and living life in Houston. I can't wait to spend a lot more time with you when I get College Station and I'm closer to you guys. So, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Zeta. We love you. You should come visit us more often.
Happy birthday, Zeta. I love you so much, and I wish you many more. And I love you. Yay.
Dad, on your 80th birthday, I just want to wish you all the best. You've provided so much to everyone in your family, including myself. I wish you to see everything that you haven't seen and want to with the time you got left, and I'd like to continue to be a part of your wonderful life. Love you, Dad.
Dad, I wish the best for you. I'm so amazed at how well you've done over the years and how many places you've been and things you've seen, and I hope you can continue for many more years.
For your 80th birthday, Dad, I just want you to know that I'm so happy that I've been able to share 50 of the years with you. My wishes for you at 80, I want you to live to be well over 100. I want you to spend all of your money on you and what you want.
Hey, Dad. I want to wish you a happy 80th birthday and many, many more. And know that you're loved by all of your grandkids, kids, and everybody.
From the bottom of my heart, happy birthday, and thank you for the family that you've given me and allowing me to be an extension of your family. I've had many happy birthdays because of you, and I hope you do the same.
Hey, Dad. Happy 80th birthday. What a milestone. I'm so happy. that you've allowed us to do this for you and celebrate with you. And, we're fortunate to have had you with us all these years, and I hope that continues for many, many years on. So even though I know you think that you're always the oldest man in the room, it's certainly better than the alternative. I love you, and all I can really say is thank you for being my daddy.